Hey there, good evening. Welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other rock genre type music. So today we're doing our 1971 episode 8 of Rock Greats Who Thrilled Us But Passed On. Anyways, this episode was supposed to come out on Monday, which is today, but I decided at the last minute to put it out for Tuesday morning because I had another video coming out today, my hauls for the month of February, and I didn't want there to be too many things on at the same time. So this one was moved to Tuesday morning, and then we will go back to the regular schedule, which would mean another one on Wednesday morning, then Friday, and then Sunday. So today we're doing a couple of pretty legendary individuals, I think. Definitely two of the most influential rockers of all time, at least for their various talents. We're talking about Jim Morrison of The Doors, legendary vocalist and frontman, and of course Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers, considered to be one of the very best guitar players and a virtuoso, also known as Skydog. Okay, so my little story about these two is that, of course, I've known about both of them since I was a teenager, or in early 20s, probably a teenager though. I never really got into them. Their music was not the style I listened to in the time when I was growing up. I was more of a hard rocker and slowly moving into progressive rock, neither of which of these two really don't really fit into either of those categories. I kind of think of Duane Allman and the Allman Brothers as being more southern rock, and the Doors being more psychedelic. But both of them, to me, were a little bit out of the area of what I would have listened to back then. And I've grown slowly to appreciate them both. Jim Morrison has slowly crept up over the last couple of decades, and I've been listening to some of their stuff. I have several of their albums now, and I've been trying to listen to them more often. Duane Allman's a more recent phenomenon for me, only in the last year or so, based on a couple of shows that I watch where the host of the show is quite a big fan of theirs, and so I started to gain some interest in them. So I chose the two of them because I don't think you can do a show of this nature without mentioning these two. They've been just too influential in the music. So we're going to start with Jim Morrison, basically because I like to do it in chronological order of their passing. So Jim Morrison, I'll give you the vitals on him now. Need my glasses for that. He was born Jim Morrison, or James Douglas Morrison, also known as Mojo Rising and the Lizard King. Those are a couple of nicknames that he had. He was born December the 8th, 1943 in Melbourne, Florida, USA, and he died July 3rd, 1971 in Paris, France. His basic musical style was, he was a musician, songwriter, and poet. The type of music he played was, the Doors played pretty much, was psychedelic rock, blues rock, and what they called spoken word. And of course, he was the vocalist and frontman of that band. His years active were 1963 to 71, so not a particularly long period of time, and even less of a time period of where he had reached that star quality class. He's also a member of the group of the 27 people that died when they were 27 famous people, and he's another one of them. Died almost, I think he died 2 years to the day from Brian Jones. His parents, basically his father was a naval officer, an admiral, George Stephen Morrison. And the reason I mention him is because being an admiral and being in the Navy, they moved from place to place. Could have had an effect on his psyche. Anyways, they were stationed in Washington, D.C. at the end of his father's term. So anyways, basically the stuff about him is he attended St. Petersburg Junior College for Poetry, Florida State University, and the University of California, where he studied film. While he was there, he met Ray Manasek. I'm not going to get his name right. I can never say this name. I don't know why. Ray Manzarek, who was, of course, the piano player for the Doors. They then discovered Robbie Krieger and drummer John Densmore and formed the Doors. The name was taken from the Aldous Huxley's Broken Masculine, The Door of Perception. That's the name of the book that they took the name from, which, of course, in turn was a line from William Blake. They briefly were the bar or the house band, the band that played every night at the Whiskey A Go Go's, which is a famous kind of place that a lot of bands played at. But they were the house band there. Yeah. He left. They had several in 1967. They had several big hits like. They had some hits that made the radio, several of them, which put them on the map. And he stayed with the band 67, 78, 68, 69, 70. They became more and more famous. And then in 1971, he decided to leave the band. Now, I don't know if this was a permanent arrangement. Originally, I thought it might be, but then after reading several different accounts on several different sites, I think I've come to the conclusion that he just wanted a break. And nowadays, bands do it all the time. They take 6 months, 8 months, 10 months off. But back in those days, that was something he just didn't do. But anyways, he decided to go to Paris where his girlfriend was living and write poetry. Basically, that's what he wanted to do. And that is where he died. So I just want to talk briefly about his death. First of all, he was an iconic frontman and considered by Rolling Stone to be one of the 10 greatest iconic singers of all time. They, of course, were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the 90s. I believe in 93 was the year, posthumously from his death. So anyways, he was allegedly found dead in the tub by his girlfriend when she woke up after he said he was going to take a bath. She was lying in her bed, and then she woke up and he wasn't there, so she went and he was lying in the bed and he was dead. And there was no autopsy done, and they kind of just quickly dismissed it and signed it off as just a heart failure death. But there's been several conspiracy theories. The one that's most notable, I'm only going to talk about the one, which is that he actually went to a nightclub, was looking for the people who sold heroin because his girlfriend had a serious daily heroin addiction. And he went and he bought some off of these guys, went into the washroom stall, and they found him dead on the toilet with white on his mouth and blood out of his nose. And they didn't want the nightclub to close down. The nightclub owner didn't want it to close down, so they wrapped him and put him in a trunk in the car, took him to the hotel, put him in the bathtub, filled it up with water, and left him there, so that they wouldn't be, basically investigated, and the nightclub might have had to been closed. They didn't want to lose the revenue, so that's what they said. Now, whether that actually happened or not, there's some people that say it did and some say it didn't, so I'll leave it for those of you interested in his death. You're more than welcome to go look it up. This is the only things that I found out about him. So Jim Morrison, as a musician, I think he has one of those very iconic voices. Definitely a mesmerizing type voice. Plus, I think he wrote all the lyrics for the Doors, and they were very kind of deep, and people liked him for that. When he died in Paris, when they buried him, he started getting, people would come from everywhere, people who were music lovers who loved him and worshipped him as a kind of iconic rock god. They would come from everywhere to visit his gravesite, and it became one of the biggest tourist attractions in Paris, actually. So, at any rate, Jim Morrison was a rock star. So dying at a young age was not very uncommon for rock stars, at least not in the 1960s. And so, it's actually, I think he was iconic before he died, and then once he was dead, he became even more iconic. So, but he was a great singer, I think. He had some problems, obviously. Lots of drug issues and alcohol issues, and just kind of a rebel, but wrote a lot of really great music. Like I said, I'm not a huge Doors fan, but I do appreciate some of their songs are quite good. My personal favorite is, I think it's called Riders on the Sky. I'm drawing a blank on it right now. If I remember, I'll come back to it. Just some really good stuff, so if you're interested in listening to more of their stuff, they actually made 6 studio albums while he was alive. I think they made one in '78 after his death, and most of them are fairly iconic albums. So, there it is. Jim Morrison, legendary rock star, part of the group, what they call it, the 27 Club, people that died at 27, and 4 of them died like pretty much right after each other. He died 2 years after Brian Jones, and 9 months after Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. So again, there you go. So Jim Morrison. Now I'm going to talk somewhat about Duane Allman, no less influential, maybe not as iconic as Jim Morrison, but certainly very iconic. And again, another guy who apparently burst on the scene, was only on the scene for a very short while, and then was gone. I from reading about his death and stuff, I kind of have this. It kind of reminded me of Randy Rhoads, even though Randy died many years later. There's some similarities here. Great guitar players. Both played on a couple of albums, and both were gone before people even really knew who they were. The only difference about them is that Randy Rhoads had played in a band one band before, whereas Duane Allman was a session musician on a lot of different stuff. Actually, Derek and the Dominoes was the one I was most thinking of, and he played on that album with Layla. Quite substantial amount of impact on that album as well. So anyways, I'm going to give you the vitals about Duane Allman. Duane Allman, born Howard Duane Allman, known as Skydog. Both him and Morrison had those kind of nicknames. He was Skydog. Jim Morrison was Mojo Rising, and the other one that I said earlier, which was Lizard King, yeah. So anyways, he was born November 20th, 1946 in Nashville, Tennessee. And he died October the 29th, 1971 in Macon, Georgia. His music Basically, he was a guitar. Basically, he was a southern rock guitarist and blues player. His instrument, guitar, slide guitar, the dobro, which is a type of guitar, and vocals as well. His years active 1961 to 71, but didn't become famous till 69 71. When along with his brother Greg Allman, who was another member of the band, they released basically 3 albums with him, and then one with him, but after he had died, and they were the Allman Brothers Band, 1970, Idlewild South, 1971, Live at the Fillmore East, 1971, considered a very iconic album. And then in 1972, after his death, Eat a Peach, sorry, not the peach. He went basically from musical obscurity to overnight, everybody knew who he was, considered, Rolling Stone had ranked him originally as the second best guitarist in history, behind only Jimi Hendrix. A pretty lofty place to put somebody. He was quite a good guitar player. His brother actually started playing guitar first, and then they would fight over who would get to play the guitar, and he ended up actually starting a little later, but became better than Greg Allman after a while. So, and his death was pretty explanatory. He was killed in a motorcycle accident in Macon, Georgia. And he was only 24 years old when he died, so fairly young. Often wondered what he would have achieved, or Jim Morrison would have achieved, if they had been alive longer. Such a shame for such young people to lose their life, especially these guys who were virtually virtuosos in their field. Okay, he had a membership. He was a member of Derek and the Dominoes, the Allman Brothers Band, the Hourglass, and the 31st of February. And of course, like I said, he died by motorcycle crash. So now I'm just going to talk about Duane Allman as a musician and as an interest to myself. Duane Allman was a really good guitar player. I think one of the best. I've heard his stuff. He's very good. Of course, he was the de facto leader of the Allman Brothers, even though his brother became leader after. But I just think Duane was the really special one as far as the band. His brother had a hard time after he died too. So, they released some really good stuff in a short period of time, and then he was gone, But I think he was pretty legendary, and would have become even more iconic had he survived, just because his guitar ability was still fairly new. He was a sought after session musician by a lot of different people, and I just think he was really good. I really do. I think now that I've gotten older, I've discovered that with myself, as I get older, types of music I didn't really appreciate when I was young, because I liked things a certain way when I was young and wasn't really flexible with it. I'm now beginning to see and hear stuff that is more interesting to me than it was, and the Allman Brothers have slowly begun to infiltrate my music world. And a lot of it has to do with this site and watching videos from other sites about certain musicians. That's how I get all my ideas, and that's how I get all my music to listen to. And Duane Allman is definitely one of those people that I'm going to be exploring quite a bit more in the future. Maybe even more than Jim Morrison, because Jim Morrison I've kind of known about for years, but I'm not a huge fan of psychedelic music. I don't dislike it. There's some of it I like quite a bit, but for the most part, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not sure if it's because of the drugs involved, and I'm not really that type of person, or because it seems kind of dated in a lot of ways. where I don't feel that way about other forms of rock music, but a lot of the psychedelic stuff which came out in the late 60s and early 70s seems very dated to me. But anyways, there you have it. Two legends in rock, two people that definitely had an influence on a lot of other musicians in the rock genre. Two people that were very impactful in a short period of time, and then were gone like that, like the phoenix in a blaze of fire and ball. They were gone. So you have Jim Morrison of the Doors, Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is the episode 8, and I do apologize to those of you who were expecting to see this morning at the custom 9 o'clock, but it was kind of a Sunday night decision to do it for Tuesday morning so that it wouldn't interfere with my hauls. So this one will come out tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and then we'll be back on track after that, doing number 9 for Wednesday morning at 9, and then number 10 for Friday morning at 9. Two more fairly notable people tomorrow. So hopefully you can join me, not tomorrow, Wednesday. So hopefully you can join me for that video as well. And we're getting more and more further along now in 1971. We're getting further along into musicians that I know a little bit more about. Each day I'm getting people that I know a little bit more about. I haven't gotten up to really any of the people that I really know a lot about yet, because most of the people I liked came a little bit later than these people, but it's coming along fairly nicely, I think. And researching this has been very good. It's given me a lot of insight into different stuff that I wouldn't have learned about if I hadn't had to do this, which is good. So I hope you, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And we will see you on Wednesday morning for episode 9. So you have a good evening and a good morning tomorrow. So from Frog Monster, bye.